Countdown. Hello, welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I am your host, Willie Bragg, and I want to talk about what could have been. What could have been. The fucked up elections that's I call usual, or just call it another Tuesday. Actually, elections usually on Tuesday. Election day. And basically, where everybody points fingers and accuses each other of infractions, and where the infractions were exaggerated, and where the infractions actually took place. So, I could say, this was part of my dream last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Before Tulsi Gabbard disappointed me, and before Bernie Sanders pretty much dampened my enthusiasm for him. This was the dream ticket 2 years ago. Bernie Sanders with the great economic policies, and unfortunately, he regurgitated to just another Democrat while still calling himself an independent. So I'm not as excited by old Bernie as I used to be. And then there's Tulsi Gabbard, who seemed to be very base 2 years ago, starting with the endorsement of Joe Biden by the end of the primaries, and then eventually going down with seemingly taking positions which contradicted her brand initially. So the Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard ticket never came to being, and what I predicted was going to be taking place as a ticket took place, and that was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So I might as well zap that photo away because, I'm just going to hang it up. Maybe I can wish for Cornel West and Richard Wolff to team up or something. I just thought about that this morning, and maybe I'll have to write a letter to both of them to talk about teaming up. So, anyway, what I want to talk about is, well, these two people over here, and I'll get started. Give me a second here, and we're going to talk about, we're going to focus on the year 2020. Yep, that's who we're going to focus on for a moment. Joe Biden and Donald Trump facing each other. When Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump, the Trump supporters claim that there was a lot of cheating going on. And they accused Joe Biden and the Democrat Party of being in collusion with Venezuela and China. What I think that they were referring to China-Venezuela gate in regard to the swindling of the election away from Donald Trump. Didn't happen. There was no Venezuelan Chinese collusion, and people just might as well hang it up because that didn't happen. The conspiracy theories that we're facing with to this day, ridiculous. So, as I said, that didn't happen. So, then we'll go back 4 years earlier. And and you remember these two clowns? Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. When Hillary Clinton lost, what did she do? She blamed Russia. She blamed Vladimir Putin. Corporate Democrats and even some in the progressive movement said, it was the Russians. that made just as much sense as China Gate and Venezuela Gate in regard to the election. China and Venezuela didn't collude to help Biden win, and Russia did not collude with Trump to help him win either. So, conspiracy theories debunked. I'm correct, and all the naysayers are wrong. Now, let's go back to the year 2000, what I would like to call, in my lifetime, probably the worst election ever, when, basically it was George W. Bush and Al Gore. And what happened was cheating went on. That's where the fraud took place, down in Florida. And as a result of that fraud taking place, we had 8 years of hell. I would call, in my 52, almost 53 years of living, I would say that the Bush-Cheney years were the darkest times politically in my lifetime. Yeah, I mean, I even consider it, worse. One of the worst times ever. Very depressed back then. I was and George W. Bush and Dick Cheney basically destroyed the economy and made the world less safe. So, and what happened back then? In this aftermath, a decent man was blamed. And that decent man, and he's still alive, and his name, and we all know who he is, Ralph Nader. I voted for Ralph Nader in 1996 and in 2008. I didn't vote for him in 2000. I voted for another third-party candidate, and I'll talk about in a moment. But Ralph Nader was blamed for George W. Bush winning. If Ralph Nader was just not in the way, all those people that voted for Ralph Nader, all those votes would have went for Al Gore. Not necessarily. You got people. Here's the thing: Al Gore chose the worst person as his running mate, and that was Joe Lieberman. I call Joe Lieberman the Bush-Cheney faction of the Al Gore ticket. I mean, and the thing about it is, had the Democrats been progressive and truly left-leaning like they're supposed to be, Ralph Nader would have probably not run for president in 2000, and we wouldn't have had to deal with 8 years of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. It's Al Gore's fault. It's Bill Clinton's fault. It's the Democratic Party's establishment fault that we were stuck with 8 years of Bush. Jimmy Dore has said this, and I agree with him, that when George W. Bush was rehabilitated, and I'm paraphrasing Jimmy Dore, he said that they hated Ralph Nader for giving us Bush. Now that they love Bush, hey, they still hate Ralph Nader. And thing about it is, Ralph Nader's a dirty word. Even Bernie Sanders hasn't taken a phone call from Ralph Nader since the year 2000. So, and that's fucked up. So, we go to the candidate that I voted for in the year 2000 in North Carolina, but he was partially blamed too, and he shouldn't have been, and that's the late David Mcreynolds of the Socialist Party USA. And David Mcreynolds historically was the first out-of-the-closet gay man to run for president in the year 1980. He ran again in the year 2000. And honestly, the platform of the Socialist Party USA in 2000 and the platform of the Green Party were pretty much identical, because a lot of the leadership in the Green Party were also SPUSA members, and so the platform were fairly interchangeable. I thought it was a smart decision last year for the Socialist Party USA to work with the Green Party to get on the ballot, and I hope that I hope to see Howie Hawkins make another run in the year 2024. I think he's a good man. He had a good program. He's no Bernie Sanders, but But then again, it's Bernie Sanders, still Bernie Sanders as we used to know him and love him. So, but David Mcreynolds died in the year 2018, and he was 88 years old. He lived a long life, and I knew him. I knew him, and he would tell you very interesting stories, and he was a good a good pacifist, a good socialist. He knew a lot of the people, historical people that I admired, and and the thing about it is that I don't have the photo right now, but he's most famous in a photo of the burning of the draft card at Madison Square Garden in 1965. The three gentlemen burning the draft cards. One of them was David Mcreynolds. And so, anyway, he was kind of blamed too by a lot of folks that knew who he was. It was kind of neat hearing his name being mentioned in a parody on Saturday Night Live. So, but the fraud. Let's talk about that great fraud for a moment, because this is what happened, and I'm going to explain what happened with that 2000 election fraud, and it pretty much starts like this. Let's see. I don't know why the photos are not up here. Well, damn, I don't know why it's up here. Hold on. I'm going to go get the photos, and we will explain that in just a moment here. The photos disappeared, and I had a photo set. So give me a moment here. Let's see. Because things need to be explained and put into perspective. So give me a moment, and as I said, right there, Governor Jeb Bush and Kathleen Harris, who was the Secretary of State. And Secretary of State takes care of elections in each of these states, the election laws and things like that. Well, thing about it is that she, being a Republican, working for her boss, Jeb Bush, who was the younger brother of George W. Bush, both the sons of the former vice president, who became president, who, along with their father's presidential predecessor, Ronald Reagan, stacked the Supreme Courts. So they went and tried to put a stop to the counts and took it to the Supreme Court, and lo and behold, what happened was, the Rehnquist Court, which was one of the worst Supreme Court time periods in American history, as far as I'm concerned, in modern history. The court took a very strong turn to the right, because Reagan and Bush one were talking about judicial activism of the Democrats. But I guess judicial activism is only okay when Republicans are the ones being judicial activists. But when Democrats are being judicial activists, is all of a sudden it's wrong and it's flawed and it shouldn't be. Such partisan hypocrisy. But anyway, this Bush-Reagan-packed court appointed George W. Bush as president, and this country turned into a shithole for the next 8 years afterwards. One of the worst, darkest time in history. And basically, as I said, pretty much in a nutshell, describes the great fraud of 2000. And I wanted to share that with you because, when I hear Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump complain how they've been cheated. Hillary Clinton claimed she was cheated in 2016. She wasn't. She cheated Bernie. Donald Trump was. They tried to cheat him in the Republican primaries in 2016. But he won the 2016 election. Didn't I mean, not anything to be happy about, but it was, it was a legitimate win through the quirk of the Electoral College. And I have my views of what should be done with the Electoral College. I favor abolishing it because that is the only way we're going to have a multi-party system is we abolish the Electoral College. Because here's the thing about the Electoral College. The Electoral College basically keeps the two-party system intact. You got basically a collection of special interest groups who are otherwise fighting each other, but they fear the other side, the other rival group of coalition of special interest groups that exists in the other dominant party. And so they're all kept together because they fear the other side. And this is why we have a red-blue divide in America. Now, I was having a conversation with my dad once about the media. When you watch the news, the election results, and you see the red state versus blue state, and why is it that the Republicans are always painted red and the Democrats are always painted blue? Well, there is a reason for that. I think that the media, and this is where the Republicans and the right wing are probably correct, that there is a liberal bias in the media. Liberal is not the same thing as leftist. And I just want to make that clarification. But the thing about it is that the media didn't want to associate the Democrats with socialists, and so because if you look at it and if you look at election returns in places like Great Britain, the Tories are always traditionally blue. The Labour Party's traditionally red. In West Germany, when it was the German Federal Republic, it was the same thing. The Christian Democrats were the blue party. The Social Democrats were the reds. So, and, it's not, on one hand, they didn't want to be associated with communism, the Democrats, but they also did not want to be associated with traditional center left social democracy in Europe. This is because we have an Overton window which is far to the right and really warped compared to the rest of the Western world. Is probably one of the most warped. I think that maybe Australia is probably close to being as warped as the United States. But still, the United States, with its exceptionalism, manages to do things which are the worst of the worst. So that's what it comes down to. But thing about it is, and I was going somewhere with this, that we talking about the elections that takes place and all that. We have to go and reform what is a broken system. When you have one state, let's say a state like Vermont, which requires no signatures to get on the ballot, or a place like Delaware, I think it takes like 250 signatures to get on the ballot or something like that, versus places like California, which I think is some high number. I know that North Carolina used to be like 80,000. They did kind of reform it, but it's not balanced, and so it's really inherently not fair for third parties to try to get set a foothold, and so what happens is the two parties have a vested interest to keeping the others out. So that's why you don't even see the Libertarians or the Greens be recognized by the mainstream media, let alone some of the smaller political parties. And really, honestly, it is the smaller political parties that's more exciting here in the United States because, they, in their own kind of unpolished, kind of rough on the edges sort of way, they have an insight that's always interesting to hear. And the two parties want to keep that insight as far away as possible. And the thing about it is that I get lectured sometimes, and I get lectured about you got to go and vote for the Democrats because the radical right and everything they're trying to do. Anything that the radical right Republicans do, the Democrats are just going to give it to us in a softer version. Why should I be excited by that? Why? And let me tell you, most of the time, probably about 90% of the time, whenever there's a two-party campaign going on, the party that's supposed to marginally look forward to my interests, and that would be the Democrats, don't really speak to any of my concerns, especially down here in the South. Because at least up in the Northeast or in the Pacific, in the West Coast or even in the Midwestern states, the Democrats have to pay a little bit of lip service to the unions. Here in North Carolina, the Democrats don't give a damn about the unions. They're just as bad on labor as Republicans are, and so there's not really any incentive for me to vote for a Democrat down here because they're not really speaking to the issues that I find here. Expanding union rights. They can't even do that. If they can't even do that, then what is the use to support a Democrat? And they really should just do more than just expand union rights. They're supposed to fight for Medicare for all and to fight for to have real public services that are there for the people, to make sure that everybody has housing, to make sure that nobody goes hungry, and that education is available to the people, and to have industries under social ownership that would guarantee full employment. They call them public corporations in the UK after World War II, the Clement Attlee Labour government, and that's what we need and we're not getting that with the two-party system. And as I said before, over and over again, the Democrats here in the United States, just on health care alone, makes them to the right of Margaret Thatcher's Tories in the UK, even back in the 1980s. So that's what we're stuck with here in the United States. So, and we use the culture war to try to distract people. And I say this over and over again. And the Republicans are sophisticated propagandists, in spite of how stupid some of them look. Oh yeah, guns, God gave some guns, and transgender people going into the wrong restrooms and playing on sports and QAnon, the Democrats and celebrities are having a pedophile ring going on. That kind of crap going on. And the Democrats just sit there and they just act wimpy and smile and take it. That's how I look at it. Of course, I run across Republicans and people on the right that goes around and they think that it's the Democrats that controls the agenda, and that the Democrats are the ones that get their way or what have you. Even the one thing that was considered a transformational, which would have been the Affordable Care Act, how transformational is it when it was created as a plan, as a concept by the Heritage Foundation, a neoconservative think tank that feeds garbage into the Republican Party. All the neoconservative foreign policies and the religious right rebel rousing and the hardcore corporatism, the crony capitalism, and the anti-union sentiment, all that, intellectually comes out of think tanks like the Heritage Foundation. And I told many progressives a decade ago when they looked at me, it's like, why don't you support the Affordable Care Act? I said, because it was created by the Heritage Foundation, and anything that has the fingerprints of the Heritage Foundation on it should be something that should be rejected. But people didn't listen to me, and I turned out to be right, and it is what it is. So anyway, we have here a chat line, and I will speak to everybody accordingly. So, Invalid Arg, how are you? Good morning. Great seeing you. I remember the Hanging Chaz discourse a little bit. I was a kid though. I was just turning 30 at that time. I was almost no, I was 31 at that time, and I remember waking up that morning, the next morning, and grabbing a newspaper because I was on my way to work, and it was just like, holy cow! I mean, they haven't decided the election yet, and several weeks it was. I was glad to see the chaos that took place. I'm like, this country deserved to have this kind of chaos thrown at them for the way that they shit on the American people and everything. So, um, just but unfortunately, I do think that the 2000 election killed the third party movement, which was kind of growing in the 1990s. I remember people were excited by the idea of a third party. And unfortunately, everybody clamored back into the two party thing, and it's just really sad that that's what happened. So, conspiracy theory about Pat Buchanan being the Reform Party's presidential candidate. My conspiracy theory is that I think that the Republicans sent Pat Buchanan into the Reform Party to destroy the Reform Party from within, because H. Ross Perot's Reform Party had a tracking or gaining traction in the American political landscape, and I really believe that the purpose was to destroy the Reform Party, which is not my cup of tea ideologically, but I was always glad to see a third party kind of upset things, so because that will create a hopeful situation for an independent progressive that would be similar to classic Bernie Sanders, not the Bernie Sanders today, but the classic Bernie Sanders. I probably should start talking, separating Bernie Sanders today and the classic Bernie Sanders. I may do it in another commentary. I'll think about it. So, we got Progressive Rising. Hey, how are you today? See, Trump did worse on the Supreme Court because we could have had 25 years of Gore and Kavanaugh and 40 years of Amy Coney Barrett. Oh gosh, yeah, isn't that the truth? You see, I almost voted for Joe Biden. I'm ashamed to say that, but somebody said do it for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I really wish that Ruth Bader Ginsburg could have retired during the middle of the Obama presidency, because we wouldn't have to have a problem, the problems we had. And it's sad because I actually like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was probably one of the better Supreme Court justices in many decades up there. One of the few things Bill Clinton did correctly during his presidency was the appointment of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it just makes me mad how Mitch McConnell, basically railroaded the court system last year in that election. Just makes me horrible. Make me feel horrible. I am in favor of a European-style multi-party system. Oh, isn't that the truth? As I said, I get excited by that. The PSOE in Spain and red, and the People's Party is blue. Yeah, the thing about the Partido Socialista Obrero España, the Socialist Workers Party in Spain. I admire them because in 2004, when they withdrew the troops from Iraq, I loved it because they slapped George W. Bush in the face. It was a giant fuck you to George W. Bush, and I have admired the PSOE a great deal since then. And it's as far as his name was Prime Minister Zapatero. Louis Zapatero, what was his name, and so I admire him for what he did. As far as governing Spain, otherwise, I think he was kind of closer to a Tony Blair type. Although his government did legalize same-sex marriage, was one of the earliest countries to legalize same-sex marriage, and that was the PSOE government in Spain that did that. So that's a was a wonderful development. Europe is the greatest democracy ever. You know what's interesting? How the people in Portugal, the military, filled with socialists and communists and anarchists, it was true left unity. How they peacefully toppled the government of Antonio Salazar on April 25th, 1974, the Carnation Revolution. And I've always admired the people of Portugal for doing it, and doing it in a way that the results were very peaceful. Let's see. Alaska tends to favor independence candidates. I have noticed that. Same thing in Vermont, and I think in New Hampshire there is a little bit of an independence in their state legislature too. I think. So let's see here. Let's see. Let me see here. The Democrats is the American Christian Democracy. Yeah, absolutely, they are. They're the Christian Democrats of Germany, but slightly to the right. The Liberal Party of Canada, same as the Democrats. Yeah, pretty much the Liberal Party of Canada is a less shitty version of the Democrats here, and the Tories in Canada are a less shitty version of the Republicans. That's the way I see it. Of course, if I lived in Canada, I would be with the New Democratic Party, the NDP. Ashel Lucas, VOH, period, FYI. I am not sure what that means. Invalid, thank you for the compliment, with the impressions. I try to add humor to my channel sometimes. Attempted humor. The Democrats are as right as Mariano Rajoy of the People's Party of Spain of 2020. I will go along with that. Absolutely. Whoops. Oh, yep, absolutely. Let's see. Zapatero is a Spaniard Blair. Absolutely. I this little feature, I never realized how to do that. I'm glad I can do that now. Yep. Jose Zapatero. That is correct. I think his name was Luis too. Let's see. Dirtbag left us right. You're right about Pat Buchanan. I was a John Hagelin supporter. I was depressed when the lawsuit went nowhere. Yeah, as I said, I was 31 years old at the time. So anyway, I'm glad I know how to do this little feature. There's a little plus sign in the middle, so I can show that to everybody. Now I know how to do this, and wonderful little quirks on the software that I can use on the computer to help me enhance this channel. Awesome, absolutely. Let's see. Oops. Let's see. Mariana was a great prime minister and president. So, anyway, I am glad to hear from all of you. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, well, comment anyway. We will have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. Subscribe to this channel, help it make it grow, and until next time, keep that class struggle going. Well, I will say that Jackson Hinkle usually says at the end of his program, "Fuck Dick Cheney," and I agree with that. But I'm going to say here. I'm going to say here. Free Julian Assange. So until next time, folks. I will talk to you all later.